Hi, I'm Heather, and I'm 23 years old. A couple of years ago, I got married to the person I adore. Despite my husband being French, our relationship was smooth sailing except for the language difference. To bridge the gap and connect better with him and his family, I took up learning French without them knowing. It was my way of showing how much I cared for them. My husband, Frederick, and his mom, Avril, had no clue about my secret language lessons. I not only learned French but also became quite good at it through hard work and practice. I reached a point where I felt confident enough that I could survive in France if I had to. You might wonder why my husband doesn't know about my skills. Truthfully, I was a bit shy. Speaking someone's native language can be intimidating, especially when you're always around them. But I finally decided it was time to overcome my shyness. I stopped speaking French with both my husband and my mother-in-law because the whole point was to improve communication, right? It turned out to be fortunate that I hadn't started speaking French with them yet, because one day I overheard a conversation that led to some unexpected events. "Hi Mom, how are you today? Thanks for inviting me over on this beautiful Sunday afternoon." "It's our pleasure, dear." "Hello Mom." "Hello my dear. How are you? Thanks for having me." "Don't mention it. You're always welcome here. I brought some croissants and what do you Americans call them? Bagels." "Yes, bagels and croissants for our afternoon tea." "How thoughtful. Thank you. Please, come and sit, Mom. The food will be ready soon." "Did she cook?" "No, I did most of the prep work." "Don't worry." I was relieved to hear that, though I couldn't help but wonder what she meant by it. However, I was too shy to ask. It was odd because Avril usually enjoyed my cooking. I figured maybe she just wanted her son's cooking that day, something familiar. Then I overheard her saying, "I can't stand her cooking. Why did you even invite me over? We should have gone to a cafe to avoid her." "Mom, remember we agreed to speak English so Heather doesn't feel left out?" "Oh, I'm sorry, dear. I was just saying the food looks delicious. I was surprised to find out that it was my husband who cooked. I wish it was your cooking. I always love your food." This left me baffled. How could she say those mean things in French and then lie to me in English? I started to doubt my translation, but I had a plan to confirm my suspicions. "Don't worry, you can speak French if you prefer. It's your language after all. I'll be okay." I decided to use the Google Translate app to record her conversation to ensure I understood correctly. At this point, I doubted my translation skills. As we all sat down to eat, what I heard next shocked me. "I want to discuss our plan. The time is nearing. It's practically tomorrow, Frederick. You need to be serious." The app, along with my understanding of French, confirmed that there was indeed a plan being discussed. "But Mom, not now." I said I'll handle it. "Heather, my dear, what are you going to tell her? Could you pass me the sugar, please? She doesn't know anything about the plan." "I was just going to tell her I'll be out of town." "Out of town? Why?" I was utterly confused by what was happening. Despite my confusion, I stayed composed, not revealing that I could hear their conversation, so I could strategize my next move. "Yes, Mom, I understand. I'll take care of it. I know how crucial this is. It's incredibly important. If your great-uncle doesn't see us tomorrow, he might give the house to someone else, like your cousin or aunt. We can't let that happen. No one should know about this house." "Oh, Mom, you have such a sense of humor." "Don't worry. I was just speaking English so Heather wouldn't suspect anything." "Heather? Suspect what?" "Oh, sorry, dear. I was just asking who made this delightful tea. It's wonderful." "That would be your talented son. I'm not as skilled as he is in these matters." "Oh, darling, your cooking is fantastic." "Terribly fantastic, Mom. She might catch on." "No, she won't. She's too clueless to understand us." "I'm not so sure, Mom. She probably understands some basics, I think." "Let's test it, Heather. How much French do you know?" At that moment, I realized I had to play dumb and pretend I didn't understand anything, allowing them to reveal more of their intentions and true nature. I'm still pretty terrible at French. I only know basic phrases like bonjour and comment tout appels. "Oh, that won't do, dear. You should learn more French." "Yes, ma'am. I'll work on it." "Well, at least it's convenient for Frederick and me so we can gossip about you." "I'm just joking, my dear. We would never do that to you." "Isn't that what we're doing now?" "Yes, and that's what makes it even funnier." They laughed while I continued recording the conversation with Google Translate. As I did, I also checked various apps, websites, and forums to verify the accuracy of what they were saying. After cross-referencing, I found about 90% confirmation, confirming my initial suspicions. Now that I realized they didn't have much regard for me and were openly mocking me, I knew I had to gather more information. Their insults were like slow cuts, but what I heard next shook me to my core. As I was saying, this house is crucial. No one else can know about it. Understand? We stand to make a lot of money if we keep this to ourselves. I'm relieved we didn't tell my wife about this. I don't want to share the profits with her. Me neither. Everything has to go smoothly. Your great uncle Pierre made it clear that whoever contacts him first inherits the mansion. We need to get there before anyone else and start renovating. I can't wait to have a house in California. It'll be my escape from my wife and life in Florida. Sometimes I can't stand her. You're still young. You shouldn't be tied down to someone like her at your age. Come live with me in California. Enjoy your youth with women and parties. When you're ready to settle down, you can. Let's leave this place behind. Actually, Mom, I think you're onto something. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Tears welled up in my eyes. Excuse me, is everything all right? Yes, I just need to grab something from the kitchen. I left the room before hearing anything more. I needed a moment to compose myself and avoid causing a scene. How could they say such cruel things with me right there? It was beyond shameful. I was distraught, pacing back and forth in the kitchen. Suddenly, an idea struck me. When I noticed my mother-in-law's purse on the counter, I decided to peek inside and take her phone. Luckily, it was unlocked. I opened her WhatsApp and sent Uncle Pierre's number to mine. Quickly, I deleted the message from her phone, leaving no trace. It was as if instinct guided my actions. I didn't fully understand why I did it, but I felt a sense of empowerment, plotting to retaliate against them for their hurtful words. I re-entered the dining room, where the conversation about their scheme continued. So tomorrow we start our trip. It's well-deserved after all the hard work lately. I agree. We could use a break. Everything all right? Yes, dear. We were just discussing the lovely weather and how perfect it is for a relaxing getaway. Would you like to join? Maybe not today, Freddie. All right. When then? Perhaps tomorrow. I observed closely as both Avril and Frederick tensed slightly, a reaction I anticipated, given what I knew of their plans. Tomorrow might not work. I asked Freddie to assist with some tasks around the house. What tasks? Why so many questions? Just rearranging things. I can lend a hand too, if needed. Not necessary. Do you see how nosy she's being? It's irritating. This is why you need to leave. Don't worry, Mom. I've got it under control. Despite knowing their true thoughts, I maintained a smile, finding solace in the anticipation of the revenge I would soon enact. I continued recording their conversations until the very end, determined to extract every detail. While my French had improved significantly, I still double-checked to ensure accuracy. That night, I stealthily slipped away from the bedroom to the office for further investigation. As I replayed the audio, any doubts about my understanding vanished. From this ordeal, I gleaned that they planned to vacation tomorrow to claim a house from great Uncle Pierre, and they harbored resentment towards me, even plotting to leave me. As I paced in the kitchen, leaving my recording phone behind, I inadvertently captured more valuable information. Avril sought Frederick's computer password to alter flight details. I struck gold, obtaining both password and flight information. I had hit the jackpot. I accessed Fred's computer and found the flight details on the website where he booked the tickets. Feeling both sneaky and devious, I may or may not have altered the flight details, postponing their departure to the day after tomorrow. This marked just the beginning of my plans. There was much more to come. With great Uncle Pierre's number safely sent to myself, I was prepared to take action. Hello, Uncle Pierre, it's Heather. Oh, hello, dear. How are you? Is everything all right? Well, no, not really. I recounted the day's events in detail, even sending him the audio recording as proof. Without it, I doubted he would believe me. We ended the call so he could listen to the recordings, reconvening once he had finished reviewing everything. I'm at a loss for words. How could Avril and Frederick do this? They were such sweet and innocent people when they were younger. How could they betray you? Me? It's a lot to process. I was just as shocked. You've certainly improved your French. Well done. Thank you, Pierre. But now that we know, what should we do? Well, they won't be getting the house, that's for sure. After hearing all this, I can't in good conscience give such a gift to people planning to destroy it with their greed and foolishness. Understood. It's your house, and you have every right to decide its fate. Absolutely. I'll be ignoring their calls from now on. Let's see how they like that. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. You're a good person, Heather. Don't let the darkness of this world change that. Thank you for your time and courage in sharing this with me. It couldn't have been easy. I admire your strength. Take care of yourself. Uncle Pierre, you too. Good night. With that, I felt assured that Avril and Frederick's downfall was imminent. Now that all the pieces were in place, I only needed to wait for the opportune moment to set things in motion. Returning to the bedroom, I found Frederick still sound asleep. It saddened me to think that my beloved husband could treat me this way. If only we had talked things through, perhaps we could have found a solution. Instead, he chose a path of deceit. I took his phone and disabled his alarm. Without it, he would sleep indefinitely, and that's precisely what happened. I gathered my belongings and decided to spend the night at a hotel. I couldn't bear to stay in the same house with someone like Frederick. The next day was pure chaos. I'm certain Frederick woke up to a barrage of missed calls from his mother, scrambling to pack since he foolishly hadn't done so the day before, and rushing to get to the airport. I received a call from him around 2 p.m. Where are you? Why didn't my alarm go off, and why aren't you here? I decided to take a day off for myself. That's nice. A heads up would have been appreciated though. Likewise, Freddie. What do you mean? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm running late for my my meeting with Mom. Why are you in such a hurry? She wouldn't mind if you were a bit late. You don't understand. Anyway, it's fine. I won't be home tonight or tomorrow night. I have things to take care of. See you later. Before I could respond, he hung up. He was probably too overwhelmed to realize that I had changed his flight details to the next day. Using the Find My iPhone app, I saw him heading to the airport. Imagine rushing out of the house, barely making it to the airport in time, only to discover that your flight had been canceled. I'm sure he was frantic, rushing around the airport. Suddenly, I received a call from Avril. What have you done? What do you mean, Avril? I know you changed our flight. If you mean I changed the date, then yes, I did. Why? I thought I was helping. You mentioned needing Freddie's help with something today. When I saw the flight booked for today, I figured I'd adjust it. You're welcome, Frederick. Come talk to your wife before I reach through the phone and throttle her. Heather, stop whatever you're doing. Uncle Pierre still isn't answering. Try again. He's not answering because he doesn't want to talk to you too. You understand us? Every word? But how? I warned you, Mom. I said she might understand. So you heard everything yesterday? Yes. Here's what's happening. I'm divorcing your useless son and leaving you too. Have a nice day. Oh, and next time you want to gossip about someone in their presence, make sure they don't understand. Goodbye. I ended the call before they could respond. I had enough of their drama. Later that day, Uncle Pierre called. Hello, dear. How are you holding up? I'm a bit shaken. I just had a terrible argument with Fred and Avril, and now I'm divorcing Fred. I'm sorry things turned out this way, Heather. It's part of life, I suppose. How are you feeling? Well, I finally confronted them, and they're not happy about it. What'd you say? I told Fred he's foolish for mistreating you, and I called Avril out for involving her son in her schemes. And I told them I'd given you the house. You did what? Yes, dear, the mansion is yours. Even if you divorce Fred, it's yours to share with whoever you choose. I'm speechless. It's overwhelming. I wanted the house to go to someone kind, resilient, and compassionate. That's you. It's the least I could do after all they put you through. Take it. And just like that, not only did I rid myself of two toxic individuals who didn't truly care about me, but I also acquired a multi-million-dollar mansion. Watching me gain the house they coveted so much drove Avril and Frederick into a frenzy. They bombarded me with death threats daily, but I simply replied with pictures of different parts of the house. A subtle reminder that it belonged to me, not them. Revenge had never felt so satisfyingly luxurious.
I, a 29-year-old male, and Erica, a 27-year-old female, had been in a relationship for 2 years and got engaged 4 months ago. After our engagement, Erica moved into my house, and we split the expenses in a way that I covered the mortgage while she took care of utilities, groceries, and household items. We planned to add her to the house's ownership after our marriage to ensure she had equity in it. Erica's best friend, Leah, who is also 27, has been her friend since high school. I haven't particularly liked Leah, but I've always been polite because I know she'll be a part of our lives. However, my issue with Leah is that she often acts like my home is hers. For instance, she frequently brings her rather troublesome boyfriend over. Additionally, she tends to speak to me disrespectfully in my own house, as if she and Erica co-own it. One day, I discovered that some of my tools were missing from my garage, and upon checking my security camera, I found that Leah and her boyfriend had taken them when they were with Erica. When I asked Erica about it, she claimed they were just borrowing the tools and would return them. It took multiple reminders to finally get them back weeks later. I also have a valuable wine and liquor collection. One Friday evening when I was working late, I heard clinking bottles, and I found Leah behind my bar. She claimed Erica said it was okay to borrow a bottle for her party and that she pay for it. I told her it was not okay and asked her to leave. When I discussed this with Erica, she couldn't recall authorizing Leah to take a bottle. At this point, I expressed my discomfort with Leah being in my house. Erica understood, but she didn't take my concerns seriously. The last straw was when I couldn't find my golf clubs, which are a significant investment for me. I reviewed the security camera footage and discovered that Leah had used my garage code to take them. I lost my temper, called Erica, and insisted she get my clubs back immediately. Erica explained that Leah had asked for the garage code to retrieve some clothes from her closet, and Leah had taken my clubs along with her things. Leah claimed her boyfriend needed them for work. I eventually got my clubs back after almost 4 days, and they were dirty. I sat Erica down and told her that if I ever saw Leah in my house again, I'd call the police without discussion. Erica got upset, stating that Leah was her best friend, and it wasn't fair to ban her from our home. I pointed out that this was a recurring issue, and since Erica's possessions weren't affected, she didn't seem to care. I suggested Erica could visit Leah at her apartment, but she said she couldn't because Leah didn't like her apartment, and her boyfriend was always there, making Erica uncomfortable. Now I'm receiving the silent treatment and being called unreasonable, but I don't believe I'm in the wrong. Before diving into the update, I want to express gratitude for the insightful comments received earlier. Many of you advised against putting my fiancé on the deed to my home and even questioned the viability of our marriage. It became clear that the issue wasn't just about Leah. It was a deeper problem with my fiancée, Erica. I confronted Erica about the situation when I found Leah's car parked in our driveway. I insisted that Leah leave, and despite her protests, I made it clear that I would involve the police if necessary. Erica, in her attempt to defend Leah, couldn't sway my decision. I sat her down and showed her this post. After reading through the comments for 20 minutes, Erica's response indicated she didn't grasp the gravity of our situation. That was my breaking point. I asked Erica to hold out her hand, remove the engagement ring, and ended our relationship. She pleaded, apologizing and promising to sever ties with Leah, but I couldn't ignore the fundamental lack of trust I felt toward her. Erica retreated to our room while I began packing her belongings in the kitchen. I reached out to her parents, informing them of the situation. To my surprise, they shared that Leah had long been banned from their home since high school due to similar issues. They expressed their anger and disappointment and agreed to come this weekend to collect Erica and her belongings. The weight lifted off my shoulders is immense, and I can't help but feel a sense of relief and resolution. Realizing the depth of my situation became possible because of this post. I sincerely thank each and every one of you. With newfound freedom, I'm eager to indulge in my hobbies, like playing golf with my reclaimed clubs. The prospect of embracing single life is both exciting and liberating. Your support has meant the world to me, and I can't express my gratitude enough. As for my next story, I'm seeking your perspective on a situation with my girlfriend. Early in our relationship, she decided to test my consideration by canceling a date. one where we were planning to take our relationship to the next level. It was a significant drive for me, and she waited until I was halfway there before letting me know. Despite her claims of feeling unwell, her timing seemed to deliberate, testing my reaction. I'd offered my understanding and even suggested visiting her to help, but she declined. She later explained that this test was pivotal for our relationship, emphasizing my consideration. However, I can't shake my frustration. I feel she lacked consideration for my time and effort, seemingly inconveniencing me intentionally. When I confronted her about this, she half-heartedly apologized, downplayed the situation, and dismissed my feelings. We ended up arguing, leaving me feeling like an insensitive jerk for getting upset over what seems like a small issue. The fact that she lacks remorse and even makes me feel guilty for being rightfully upset is troubling. It feels like a manipulative and gaslighting tactic, raising several red flags about her behavior. Your insights are invaluable, and I'm struggling to navigate this situation. I've come to realize that you're absolutely right. I seem to be dating another version of my ex. It's disheartening when the person who should be administering the relationship test fails so miserably at it themselves. What's even worse is their inability to consider the possibility that the other person might be dissatisfied with their behavior. She should have kept her little test to herself. Your conduct on that day was appropriate and considerate. Kudos to you for handling it well. Now, moving forward, you might find yourself questioning every situation, wondering if it's a test. And frankly, it might be. It's crucial to have a discussion about this. It's not a minor issue to be upset about. Your concerns are valid, and addressing them is essential. As for the next story, titled, "Am I the a-hole for buying a door for my son behind my husband's back?" I must say your husband's behavior is incredibly controlling and frankly scary. It's deeply concerning that he believes your son shouldn't have a door to his room until he's 18, essentially denying him any privacy. I understand your perspective. Teens deserve some freedom and privacy within reason. It's not just about personal space, it's also a matter of safety. Without a proper door, your son is at risk in case of emergencies like a fire. If a fire were to break out, he would have no barrier to prevent smoke and flames from entering his room, putting his safety in jeopardy. Your decision to provide him with a door is not only about granting him privacy, but also ensuring his safety. While your husband may see it as a challenge to his authority, your son's well-being should take precedence. It's unfortunate that your husband reacted this way, but your intentions were rooted in your son's safety and comfort. Navigating this situation may require a difficult conversation, but your concern for your son's safety and privacy is completely valid. Your husband's behavior is indeed troubling, and it puts both you and your son at risk. It's disheartening to see the kind of man he has turned out to be. I urge you to prioritize finding a safe and secure living arrangement for you and your son. I have genuine concerns that his mistreatment may escalate if you continue to stand up for your rights, especially with your recent act of giving your son a door. I genuinely worry that staying in a home with a potentially violent person is not a safe option. Nobody should have to endure such a situation. It's evident that your husband made the unilateral decision to deny your son a door without considering your input. By now, you've shown him what it feels like to have one, and he clearly dislikes it. The question I have is why you've stayed in this situation for so long, enduring a man who treats your son in this manner. The notion that a man automatically holds authority and dominion over his household as the ultimate ruler is unjust and outdated. While you're not the a-hole for getting your son a door, it's essential to recognize that this may be an ongoing battle throughout his teenage years. If the situation doesn't change, it's unlikely he'll return once he turns 18. There are larger issues at play here than just the door, and maltreatment of your son is a severe concern. It's clear that your husband's difficult upbringing doesn't excuse his mistreatment of your son. It's worth noting that you had your son when you were 21, and your husband was 32, making it all the more important to ensure a safe and supportive environment for your child's well-being. The age gap between you and your husband combined with his consistent attempts to suppress your voice and punish both you and your son for questioning his authority, is deeply concerning. The fact that you feel compelled to resort to secretive actions to advocate for your child's well-being raises alarming red flags. I fear that your husband might harbor an unhealthy, authoritarian mindset about the role of the head of the household. Regardless of his upbringing or religious beliefs, there is no justification for his controlling behavior. It's crucial for you to consider whether the current status quo aligns with what you genuinely want for yourself and your child. Music. In the last story, the question arises: am I the a-hole for canceling a vacation with my fiancé and taking my daughter on a vacation instead? My daughter, Maya, who is 16, struggles with severe anxiety. Despite being in therapy and medication, there are certain areas, particularly school-related matters, where we need to tread lightly due to her condition. My policy has always been that as long as she tries her best and passes, I am content. My fiancé, however, has been pressuring Maya to work harder and achieve better grades, suggesting she aim for straight A's to get into a good college. I've consistently shut down these demands, stating that her current grades are suitable for her plans to attend community college and then transfer to a local state school. Here's the issue. My fiancé made a secret deal with Maya behind my back. He promised her a trip to Disneyland if she managed to achieve straight A's this semester, withholding it if she received a B. Maya, eager to experience Disneyland, kept this pact hidden from me. Over time, I noticed her growing stress, attributing it to the challenges of her junior year. However, last week, she finally broke down, revealing the deal she had made with my fiancé. I was furious upon learning this. Seeing the toll it had taken on her, I canceled the hotel reservation for the ski trip my fiancé, Maya, and I were planning. Instead, I booked a last-minute trip for Maya and me to Disneyland and Universal Studios this week. Maya has been in a fragile state, experiencing panic attacks and stress-induced sickness, so I prioritized her well-being over the initially planned vacation. Maya truly deserves this trip after all her hard work this year. However, my fiancé is expecting me to cover half of the cancellation fees and activities that can be refunded. We got into a heated argument, and we're currently not speaking. Deep down, I know this relationship is over, but I wanted to confirm if I was in the wrong here. I understand what he might have intended to do, but this was clearly not the way. He undid all the progress Maya achieved through therapy and ended up hurting her more than helping her. Besides, what does he expect her to do if she gets into a good school? Stress her even more with a demanding university environment? It's all messed up. I appreciate your support for my decision to stand up for my daughter. I'm looking forward to enjoying this trip with her and having a wonderful mother-daughter experience. Regarding her education, I agree that starting at a community college for 2 years is a smart and more supportive approach, especially considering her struggles with anxiety, which she is still working to control. Your point about my fiancé manipulating my daughter and convincing her to keep secrets from me is alarming. His actions endangered her mental and physical health, all for his misguided belief in what he thinks is the only path to success. His manipulation could have had dangerous consequences, and I now see it as a pattern in his relationship with her, establishing that it's acceptable to do things behind my back if it benefits him. As for the fees, the more I reflect on it, the more I feel it should be his responsibility to pay for them. He manipulated everyone involved, including me, and I shouldn't be responsible for the financial repercussions of his actions.
My life took an unexpected turn when my husband walked in on me in a compromising situation with another man. The aftermath of that moment was nothing short of catastrophic. His immediate reaction led to a 5-year jail sentence, my family's disdain, and my overwhelming self-loathing for shattering the image of our seemingly perfect family. I often find myself lost in thoughts of regret, repeating the same self-condemning mantra late into the night, especially when the silence in my once happy home becomes too loud to bear. My children, who were once the center of our universe, are no longer here. My ex-husband despises me with every right to do so, and my immediate family is torn apart. I never managed to forgive myself for the selfish act I committed back in 2015, right after turning 39. I now confess that I took my ex-husband for granted. He had always shown me love, complimenting my beauty daily and seeking intimacy regularly. He treated me as an equal, not a queen or princess, for we were partners in the truest sense. Our journey started in high school, and we remained each other's sole and steadfast companion. Everything felt just right. My family adored him, and my brother looked up to him as a role model. He had helped countless people in difficult situations, always the one they called when in trouble. Through the years, he proved himself to be a good man. We were blessed with two strong-willed sons, who, at the time of this incident, had grown into two wonderful young women. But over time, I let myself go, feeling self-conscious about my weight. He continued to tell me I was beautiful, even as we encountered few arguments that were usually about our physical relationship, or rather, the lack thereof on my part. It wasn't that I didn't want to connect with him in that way, but my mood often just didn't align. He understood, and we communicated openly about our desires. However, when I turned 39, my birthday party revealed a new version of myself. I had spent an entire year at the gym, practicing yoga and Pilates, and had managed to transform my body from 180 to 135 pounds. It was a remarkable achievement, especially for someone who had always been a bit heavier. My ex-husband also began his fitness journey, shedding pounds and tumming his body, going from 260 to 225. His desire for me only intensified, and he couldn't keep his hands off me. We went on dates, danced, and took regular walks. He continued to be a supportive partner around the house, and his eyes always conveyed his love and longing for me. It was incredible to think that even after 2 decades together, he still looked at me with such desire, something any woman would cherish. But despite all this, for reasons I couldn't explain, I still found myself unable to reciprocate his affection during that time. I initially attributed my decreased sexual desire to early menopause. Our physical intimacy had dwindled to about 3 times a month, and I was usually a one-and-done kind of person. In contrast, my husband's desire for more was unrelenting. He even suggested couple counseling as a solution, but I stubbornly declined, allowing my selfishness to cloud my judgment. The turning point arrived when a new manager joined my office a few days after my birthday. He was a bit younger and undeniably handsome, and for some inexplicable reason, he developed an interest in me. I initially brushed off his advances, but as time passed, my indifference transformed into casual conversation. Eventually, he started flirting, and I revealed my wedding ring. Yet, after 2 months of constant flirting, I found myself reciprocating, sharing details of my life with him, and, to my dismay, thinking about him more and more. In hindsight, I realized it was the beginning of an emotional affair, but at the time, I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions. My husband began to sense that something was amiss. We had a heated argument about it, which, in my mind, began when he tried to kiss me. I unintentionally made a disgusted face, not directed at him but rather at the thoughts of this other man who occupied my mind. A week after that incident, I decided to meet the new manager at a cafe with the intention of telling him to stay away, that I couldn't continue this. However, before I could utter a word, he kissed me, and my thoughts went blank. That marked the commencement of our 6-month affair. During this time, I found myself doing things with this man that my ex-husband had longed for. I was more eager, more willing, and constantly in the mood. It felt like a new and exciting experience, and as a result, my intimacy with my husband suffered. Although we did have occasional encounters, my behavior toward him grew increasingly critical and belittling, and I'm filled with shame when I reflect on how I treated him during that period. It wasn't until my brother came to visit and revealed that my ex-husband had confided in him about his deepening depression and thoughts of separation that I snapped out of it. He believed that I no longer loved him and that he was falling out of love with me. This revelation jolted me back to reality. I immediately ended the affair, resigned from my job, and resolved to make my husband feel loved and wanted again. I had resolved to fix my marriage, to become a better wife, but the universe had other plans. One day, my affair partner unexpectedly showed up at my house, carrying a box of office belongings I had requested. We spoke briefly. He sought answers, questioning what he had done wrong. I told him I needed to mend my marriage and asked him to leave. However, he pleaded for one last encounter, and foolishly, I agreed. We retreated to the guest room, where our liaison took a tragic turn. I lost track of time in the heat of the moment. Suddenly, my affair partner jerked back violently, and there was a deafening bang. As I sat up, I saw my ex-husband standing there, his eyes bloodshot, tears streaming down his face, lips trembling with pain. My affair partner lay on the floor, and there was a gaping hole in the wall. In the chaos that ensued, my ex-husband and affair partner clashed violently. I screamed, trying to intervene, but desperation led me to jump on my ex's back, resulting in me being thrown to the floor. Everything blurred for a moment. When I regained clarity, my ex-husband had my affair partner pinned down, and he was on the phone, his face a mask of determination. Moments later, the police arrived, handcuffing my ex-husband, while paramedics tended to my severely injured affair partner, who needed reconstructive surgery on his face. At the hospital, I faced a barrage of emotions from my family: my father's silent, shaming gaze, my brother's furious accusations, and my mother's misguided attempts at comfort, which only fueled my father's anger. My affair partner's wife also confronted me, revealing a truth I had been oblivious to: he was married. This revelation added another layer of guilt and remorse. In the aftermath, my boys stayed with their grandparents, refusing to talk to me. My daughters were equally distant. My ex-husband, too wounded to see me, refused my attempts to visit him in jail. Despite my brother's efforts, he ensured my ex was transferred to a correctional facility, where he would serve his sentence, a stark reminder of the irreversible consequences of my actions. To keep an eye on my ex-husband during the trial, I asked my brother if he could relay a message for me. His response was bitter, telling me to go to hell. The trial marked the first time in 3 months that I saw him, and the anger in his eyes cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced. Even in our angriest moments, he used to look at me with love, but during the trial, it was pure hatred. Overwhelmed by the emotions, I excused myself to the restroom to cry. As the trial days passed, I was forced to recount my affair in agonizing detail for everyone in the courtroom to hear. When I mentioned the duration of the affair, my ex-husband looked utterly crushed, and my father stood up and walked out in disgust. During his testimony, I learned that he had come home to surprise me with lunch and a romantic weekend trip for 2 in the Catskills. He had meticulously planned a romantic getaway, only to walk in on us, and his reaction was visceral. He later explained that, upon seeing us together, the affair partner ordered him to step aside, and my ex-husband snapped. He violently beat the affair partner, only stopping when he tossed me away. My ex-husband quickly called 911, and the courtroom played the recording of his voice, filled with pain and sobs, as he followed the operator's instructions. It was a heart-wrenching moment. The affair partner couldn't verbally testify and was heavily medicated, so they displayed images of his injuries, which made me physically ill. I felt responsible for this man's severe injuries, as my ex-husband had smashed his eye socket, cheekbones, and destroyed his jaw to the point where the bone fragments were too small to reconstruct. My ex-husband was subsequently charged with a third-degree felony and sentenced to 7 years. This decision led to protests from my sons and anguished cries from my daughters and his family, a sound that still haunts me. The first 3 months that followed were torturous. I was sued by my affair partner's wife for alienation of affection, and my ex-husband filed for divorce. My eldest son moved out, while the other son withdrew into his room, and my twins rebelled fiercely. My former sister-in-laws physically attacked me in a store, and my ex-husband's mother spat in my face when I tried to apologize to her. My father and brother refused to speak to me, and even my lifelong friends were divided over the situation. I eventually had to find a new job since there was no money coming in, and I had almost depleted our savings. I was essentially blacklisted in my field due to the negative publicity surrounding the trial. so I resorted to working in retail and took on a seasonal position as an H&R Block adjuster during the tax rush. I came perilously close to losing our home, and my ex-husband refused to allow me to visit him. Every letter I sent was returned unopened, and crying in the shower became almost a daily ritual. My parents' marriage was strained as my mother persistently defended me, while my brother continued to ignore my existence. It was a bleak time, and even my lifelong friendships began to crumble. Dark thoughts of ending everything began to creep into my mind, contemplating a way out of the unbearable pain. I carried the weight of guilt on my shoulders, watching my belongings disappear as I drifted into isolation. The burden became too much to bear, eventually leading me to seek help from a therapist. She didn't mince words. She scolded me, telling me that I had grown complacent in my relationship with my ex-husband. I hadn't seen him as a husband, but more like a friend with benefits, and I had treated him as such. She was right. I had taken him for granted. Nearly a year had passed, a year of silence from my children. When I cooked dinner, they would quietly collect their food and retreat to their rooms, refusing to even glance in my direction. I had my share of meltdowns, begging them to speak to me, but it was met with silence. My brother got married, and I wasn't invited, though my kids were. I continued trying to visit my ex-husband, hoping he would add me to the visitor list, but I was consistently denied access. My letters remained unanswered, plunging me further into depression. Then, out of the blue, my brother showed up at my house. It was the first time he had visited since the trial, and he was clearly unhappy. He came to scold me, emphasizing that my ex was in the infirmary after a violent incident. An inmate had attempted to sexually assault him in his cell, resulting in my ex-husband getting stabbed in the stomach and the inmate suffering a broken spine. My brother's words cut deep, and I cried for days, acknowledging that in many ways, I was responsible for this outcome. I made persistent efforts to visit my ex in the infirmary and continued writing letters, but they were consistently returned. For 4 more years, I tried to reach out to him, with no success. Thankfully, our children visited their father frequently, and it was through them that I learned he had been placed in protective custody by my brother after the attack. Over the years, my eldest attended the same college as my ex-husband and pursued the same major, but he only maintained contact with his siblings. He had no desire to speak to me or visit our house during the holidays, choosing instead to spend time with his grandparents. My other son followed a similar path, going to the same college and refusing to contact me. As for my twins, they were hard on me, but their visits to their father improved their mood. Whenever they became excessively rebellious, their uncle stepped in to set them straight. My brother and I still hardly spoke, despite my attempts to reach out. I even tried to visit his wife when they had their first child, but I was asked to leave. My mother continued to keep me informed about the happenings in their lives, while my father maintained his refusal to acknowledge me. Then, at the beginning of May this year, my children returned home, seemingly happy, a rare sight that brought a glimmer of hope. I didn't understand why, and at that point, I didn't even care. My children were back home for 4 months, and I did everything in my power to show them how sorry I was. Although I was mostly ignored, they were talking to me, and those conversations brought immense joy. Finally, I was able to know what was happening in their lives. My eldest had been dating a woman for over a year. My second-born was excelling on a college track team, and even my girls were starting to talk to me again. Witnessing their smiles, hearing their laughter, and sharing meals together felt like a cherished dream I never thought I'd experience again. I missed those moments deeply. Towards the end of August, I was eagerly preparing for the twins' first day of their senior year, which also happened to be their 18th birthday. I enthusiastically shared my excitement about their upcoming birthday party, telling them all the plans I had in mind. But without hesitation, my girls asked if we could celebrate it on a different day. I was confused. I thought we were making progress. When I asked why, one of them bluntly said, "Because Dad is throwing us a party, and I don't want you near him." Her words stunned me. I inquired when their father was released, and they informed me that he had been out since the end of April due to good behavior. The news shattered me. He was back in their lives, and they seemed happier because of it. It wasn't our healing they were enjoying. It was having him back. I asked where he was staying, and they revealed he was living with my brother. Driven by desperation, I tried reaching out. I attempted to call him, went to his place holding all the letters he had returned throughout the years, and glimpsed him briefly through the door crack. I cried out his name, but my brother promptly asked me to leave. I handed him the letters and departed. As I reached the driveway, I heard his voice and turned around, only to be met with his cold rejection. He handed back my letters, emphasizing, "You forgot this." My pleas fell on deaf ears as he walked away. My children, witnessing the scene, stared at me, their eyes void of love. In that moment, I realized that my children were merely tolerating me. Despite the overwhelming odds, I still clung to a sliver of hope. I wanted to fix this, to tell him how profoundly sorry I was for my selfishness, for destroying what we once had. I longed for the chance to express how much I missed him, how deeply I regretted my actions. I yearned for him to forgive me, to talk to me, to be by my side again. I wanted our family reunited, but deep down, I knew I didn't deserve it. Even if, by some miracle, we were reunited, it could never be the same. My selfishness had irreparably altered everything, and I wished I could turn back time and undo the damage I had caused. Now let's delve into the opinions from the community. Opinion number 1 expressed deep sympathy for your ex-husband, highlighting how your own account revealed emotional abuse and dismissive behavior toward a man who always made you feel loved and desired. This person emphasized the importance of surrounding yourself with friends who hold you accountable for your actions, rather than those who condone your behavior. They advise you to work on yourself and seek therapy to move forward. Opinion number 2 offered a stark perspective, suggesting that it might be best for you to stop trying to reconnect with your past family, as your attempts could be perceived as harassment. The advice was to acknowledge the irreparable damage and respect the boundaries set by your ex-husband and children. Opinion number 3 emphasized the gravity of the situation, pointing out that your children cut ties with you due to the severity of the events. They stressed the need to respect your ex-husband's choice to distance himself and advised you to focus on moving forward, improving your relationship with your children, and being realistic about the future. This opinion emphasized the importance of accepting the situation rather than holding on to unrealistic dreams. As for the viewers, they were encouraged to share their thoughts, subscribe, and like the video to support the channel. The overall sentiment expressed was one of understanding the tragedy of your situation, but urging you to accept the reality and move forward for the sake of your own well-being. My fiancé and I made a mutual decision to embrace an open relationship a year ago. We established clear boundaries. While physical interactions with others were allowed, emotional connections beyond our partnership were off-limits. However, my suspicions grew when I began to suspect he was developing an emotional bond with a woman he had been physically involved with. As our wedding date approached, I found myself wanting to close the open relationship due to its impact on our bond. I had engaged in purely physical relationships with 4 men, adhering to our agreement. On the other hand, my fiancé had intimate encounters with several women, but it seemed there was nothing more to it. That was until I discovered he had been seeing one particular woman for at least 3 months. My investigation revealed that he was taking her out for dinners and lunches, messaging her daily, and even planning work trips together. This emotional involvement crossed the boundaries we had set, leaving me feeling furious and betrayed. I resolved that I couldn't proceed with our relationship under these circumstances. I wanted him to end his emotional involvement with her. Otherwise, I couldn't go through with marrying him. We had promised to prioritize each other, and his actions had clearly violated that agreement. I planned to confront him that evening, seeking an explanation for his breach of trust and honesty. I didn't form emotional connections with other men and remained faithful to our agreement. You see, he must have been deeply hurt by my initial suggestion of having friends with benefits. The problems in my relationship with my fiancé came to a head on a Friday, shortly after I discovered his emotional involvement with a woman he had initially only had a physical relationship with. Our open relationship began last year, but we had been exclusive before that. On that fateful Friday, he went to her place after work, intending to return on Saturday. However, he informed me on Saturday that he would be staying until Sunday. He explained that she was unwell and had a migraine coming on, so he wanted to make sure she was okay before leaving. I called him out on his excuses, as it seemed unnecessary for him to stay with her for a migraine. He insisted he was being honest and promised to return on Sunday afternoon, which he did. Afterward, I confronted him about my knowledge of his relationship with this woman, which we both agreed was off limits in our open relationship. We had agreed to physical partners only, without emotional connections to others. He seemed taken aback by how much I knew about his interactions and outings with her. I confessed that I had looked at his email and WhatsApp messages, which enraged him. He refused to engage in further conversation, but I pressed him, knowing he was hiding something. Eventually, he approached me and dropped the bombshell. He had been contemplating our relationship and had concluded that he no longer wanted to marry me. When I inquired if he was ending our engagement, he went further, stating he was done with the relationship altogether. Amid heated arguments about his infidelity, he admitted that his decision was directly linked to his deep feelings for this woman. He confessed to being in love with her and acknowledged that he had cut ties with all his other partners because he was emotionally invested in her. He described feeling loved and cherished when with her, appreciating that she had chosen to be exclusively with him. He declared his intention to commit to her. I expressed my desire to close our relationship and be only with him, realizing that the open arrangement was not working for us. However, he firmly refused, asserting that he couldn't end his relationship with her and that he no longer cared to make things work with me, as everything had changed irreparably. I reminded him that he had agreed to open our relationship and had been involved with several women. Yet, he was now holding me responsible for our mutual decision. He denied blaming anyone, expressing that he initially believed the open relationship would work out fine. However, over time, he found the experiences empty and felt pathetic engaging in casual encounters. He described the encounters as meaningless and admitted feeling terrible about it all. He stated his desire for complete commitment, expressing his preference for a more meaningful connection. He didn't offer an apology for emotionally cheating behind my back. When I pointed out that he was ending years of commitment and an engagement for a mere 3-month fling, he coldly insisted it wasn't just a fling. I couldn't believe his detached and indifferent demeanor. Although he didn't explicitly say it, he was seriously contemplating moving in with her after only 3 months. His words left me devastated and hollow. I am torn between waiting for him to realize he might be rushing into this new relationship and abruptly leaving our life and home together, or letting him go and seeing if he ever comes back to me. I feel too shocked and confused to react, spending the entire night awake, trying to comprehend what happens now. We were supposed to get married later this year, and the thought of canceling our plans and telling everyone it's off is unbearable. My mind is overwhelmed, and I am struggling to cope. As for whether I should inform the other woman about his engagement, I'm unsure if she is aware of it. Reading the comments, I am left feeling like I am the one who played a game and ended up with a heart-wrenching prize. The situation has turned, and he has closed the door that we once opened, leaving me standing on the other side in disbelief. How does it make you feel to picture him taking this woman out for a romantic candlelit meal, filled with sweet, tender moments? Does it churn your stomach and shatter your heart? The truth is, when you hinted that he wasn't enough for you by suggesting sleeping with other guys, you made him feel inadequate. From a purely rational perspective, he thought he was better off finding someone else than staying with you. After all, you implied there was someone specific you wanted to be with, even if you didn't explicitly say it. I know it might not be the most ethical path, but in his eyes, it seemed like the right thing to do, especially since you had experience with open relationships in the past. Furthermore, despite your claim of no emotional attachments outside your relationship, you were never emotionally available for him. So he found someone else, someone who, in his own words, made him the sole focus of her affection. You can't salvage this, nor should you try. Your selfishness and neglect pushed him away, and while he's not blameless, he's far less at fault than you. Let him go and find happiness. Don't bother contacting the other woman because she's evidently closer to him than you are now. I agree with all of this, Despite OP's attempts to justify herself, she fails to grasp the gravity of her actions. The relationship was opened up as a last resort when things were falling apart. His self-worth deteriorated, and this was never communicated properly. It's clear he was deeply hurt. Frankly, it doesn't seem like OP has the choice to close the relationship anymore, considering how oblivious she appears to be. I can't help but wonder if this is some April Fool's Day prank, because the situation seems almost too absurd to be real. If it isn't a joke, it's downright creepy to think someone like OP exists out there. I'm sorry for your situation, but belittling others won't change the reality. Now for the next story. I, a 20-year-old female, pushed my 19-year-old male boyfriend into an open relationship, and now I fear he's going to leave me. The title pretty much sums it up. We've been dating for almost 3 years, starting back in high school. Our intimate life used to be amazing, but recently it lost its spark. My best friend at the time suggested that the only way to fix the relationship was by opening it up. So I sat down with my boyfriend and explained what an open relationship entailed. I was genuinely excited about this new experience, but my boyfriend was initially hesitant. It took a week of convincing and explaining the pros and cons for him to agree. It was clear that he had reservations, as he believed it would permanently alter our relationship. Despite his reluctance, we opened up our relationship, and a few months passed. During this time, I engaged in a physical relationship with one of my coworkers, devoid of any emotional attachments. It was enjoyable, but I began to miss being intimate with my boyfriend and yearned to return to monogamy. However, my world was turned upside down when I discovered that my boyfriend was sleeping with far more people than I was. What hurt even more was that many of these individuals were from our high school, and the ultimate betrayal was that he had fallen in love with the concept of an open relationship, while I wanted to revert to monogamy. I felt betrayed and conflicted about how things had unfolded. As for the top advice, well, it seemed like my plan had backfired. I recognized that but desperately wanted to return to monogamy, even though my boyfriend was enjoying the open relationship concept. The phrase, "play stupid games, win stupid prizes," resonated with my situation. Others pointed out that I wasn't betrayed. I had pushed for this arrangement. Now that it seemed to be working for my boyfriend, I couldn't suddenly ask to close it. I was told I might have to live with the consequences of my actions or risk the relationship collapsing. My friend's advice had been misguided, and there were better ways to address relationship issues than taking such a drastic step. Ultimately, I was advised that I couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. My boyfriend was content with the current arrangement, and my choices had led us down this path. Ending the relationship might be the only option if we couldn't find a compromise. I was cautioned against thinking he would just leave me, as he seemed satisfied with the open relationship. Now, everything seems to be going well on the surface, despite how I'm truly feeling. If I were to tell him that I no longer wanted an open relationship, he probably wouldn't agree to end it. He enjoys the freedom of the open relationship, relishing both physical intimacy with others and the comfort of having me at home. It's evident that I've made a mistake. As for the last story, I'm a 29-year-old woman in a 2-year relationship with my 31-year-old boyfriend. I wasn't content with our monogamous relationship, so I initiated the conversation about an open relationship after 1.5 years. My motivation wasn't dissatisfaction with him. Rather, I missed the excitement of flirting in new relationships, which I knew I couldn't recreate with him. We set some ground rules. Each of us could have one extra partner at a time, strictly friends with benefits, not one-night stands. These partners couldn't be people already in our lives, and we couldn't see them more than once a week without the other's permission. Additionally, bringing them home required mutual agreement. Initially, the open relationship seemed like a good solution. I had the opportunity to explore new connections without diving into a string of physical relationships. However, my boyfriend started seeing Christine. He followed all our rules and was transparent about his interactions with her. Yet he didn't stop seeing her. Despite my attempts to move on from people to avoid attachment, he continued seeing Christine for 4 months. Recently, he suggested a threesome with her, and I reluctantly agreed to meet her for coffee without him present. The encounter left me feeling angry and uncomfortable. I cut the date short and informed my boyfriend that I was not interested in pursuing a threesome with her. What frustrated me most was his refusal to consider a threesome involving my friend with benefits, despite my openness to one with Christine. He outright rejected the idea and wouldn't even meet my friend, despite me meeting all of his partners. The situation left me feeling frustrated and confused about our relationship dynamics. I've reached a point where the open relationship doesn't matter to me anymore. Is there any way to close things up again and move past this? Some general advice. Treat others how you want to be treated. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And for the vast majority of people, open relationships are a terrible idea. In retrospect, asking for an open relationship seems selfish now because it was all about me scratching my own itch, not about exploring something meaningful with my partner. When my boyfriend followed the rules I set, I selfishly decided to close the relationship due to my own jealousy. This situation makes me question my emotional capacity to handle either a healthy open relationship or a healthy closed one. It feels like this post perfectly embodies the typical progression of open relationships. For many men, the hardest part of opening a relationship is their partner having physical intimacy with other men. For women, it's often dealing with the emotional connections their partner forms with other women. At the beginning of an open relationship, when both partners start exploring with others, it's usually more challenging for the man. He has to navigate his emotions and do a lot of emotional work, whereas the woman often finds it relatively easy and is enthusiastic about the non-monogamous lifestyle during this time. However, complications often arise when the man starts bonding deeply with another partner, forcing the woman to face difficult emotions. At this point, instead of dealing with her feelings, she might demand to close the relationship and use various tactics, like vetoes and new rules, to keep the relationship effectively one-sided. It's important to understand that suggesting an open relationship and then getting upset when your partner engages in one is precisely why this idea is problematic in the first place. Not everyone desires casual encounters with strangers, especially if they're in a relationship. As for my specific feelings when meeting the other woman, it wasn't just about her looks. She wasn't the type of girl I expected my boyfriend to be interested in. I'm taller and more athletically built, into hiking and climbing, while she's petite with a push-up bra, fitting the typical cute girl image. It's not about jealousy. It's about the surprise that the girl he chose as his friend with benefits doesn't match my expectations. And that concludes this discussion. If you have any thoughts to share, please leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. See you in the next one. Good day, everyone.